Morning, Bob.
Morning, Corbin. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good to see you again today. How was your weekend?
It was good. It was long.
Yeah?
But enjoyed it. Got some work done even through all the rain. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Working around the house mostly?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Working on the garden and that's about it.
Awesome.
So.
Yeah, the missus and I went down to Indy and got to hang out there for a little bit on Saturday. My folks came over and watched the kids for a day. We had a nice long day together, which was probably the first we've had in a few years.
Good deal.
It's one of those, with young children makes it a little bit difficult sometimes. But yeah, it was excellent. Went to State Park, and then we went to a music festival for a little bit. It was good times.
That sounds good. Sometimes you just need that getaway.
Yeah, lovely. Absolutely. So today we're going to talk a little bit about some cultural stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff that's going on. In particular, I guess we wanted to hit on like the Olympics coming up here, and we have a little bit of controversy there with what's her name, Gwen Berry, right? That she's making a little bit of a ruckus online.
She's another person who thinks she's special.
Well, what's the story? Where does this story start?
Apparently, I don't know the whole thing. Just on the way here, apparently she was up on the podium. And they started playing the national anthem at the same time they do every day. And she got offended and said that she was getting attacked. I think it was attacked, or it was like they did it because she was up there. And she's an African American woman. She's the only one up there. The other two were white gals. And apparently she said she was getting attacked, and they did it to make fun of her or something. I mean, she came out with some.
Well, so this incident was she's on the podium, the anthem starts playing, and she like turns her body away from the flag or something like that.
Turns her back to the flag and then pulls out a T-shirt that says
activist athlete on it. Yeah. So I don't know if it was like raise a shirt and then
she put it over her head.
Okay.
At least that's the picture they showed, was she put it over her head.
So interesting.
It's one way to make yourself look like a fool.
Well, so she's so this was not the Olympics yet. This is
the
like
trials,
the trials or whatever. And maybe it's a practicing thing that they do. I don't know. Did she walk it back and say she wasn't trying to make a statement, or yeah?
I don't know though. I didn't read the whole article.
Okay.
I just found it really interesting that's. And then, well, I mean, as you can see, just from a couple different news sources, people are already saying that it was, deliberate and stuff like that. So, of course, everyone's going to have their opinion. On a news outlet that I was listening to this morning, they actually interviewed one of the ladies who's, like, in charge of a lot of that stuff for the Olympic trials. Like, she's like a admin type person. Okay. She's not an athlete or a coach. And she said that, this isn't going to fly because she said that first off, you sign paperwork saying you're not going to protest on the podium.
Sure.
And then in the Olympics, the trials and at the Olympics, you cannot protest when you're there, and you're signing paperwork for international.
Sure.
At least as far as I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way that she explained it. So. There might be an international outrage if she decides she wants to go up there and throw a fist in the air or kneel or something. I mean, like that, you're just embarrassing your country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Most people are very proud to go and be an athlete and compete for this nation.
Yes.
Every nation. I mean, Russia literally, their kids are born and they're put automatically into training and they're just told you're going to be an athlete. Like, you don't get a choice.
Yeah.
And in this country, this is one of the only countries that you don't get paid to be an athlete to go to the Olympics. You have to actually just go do it.
Yeah.
Every other country, that's your job. That's not your job here in the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of college kids do it and stuff, but it's like they're still going to class. They still got to work jobs. You can get sponsorships, but you're not paid by your government.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Now, I guess I don't have too many opinions on her thing. Now, this whole protesting at the Olympics has been going on pretty much as long as the Olympics has. It's an international stage, and athletes will often use it to kind of highlight whatever their particular cause is, whatever it is that they believe in. Many of them don't, probably the majority of them don't, but that makes the ones that do kind of stand out all the more. It's always interesting too, the fact that the officials, the people that are putting on the Olympics, they always frown on it. But again, it's almost like the parents frowning on the kid, sort of thing. And eventually, the kid has to kind of work out their own angst and figure out who they are, and they get the non-approved piercing or the tattoo or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, so like you've got all these weird dynamics going on around that. Who is actually in charge here and gets to tell people what to do.
The thing is, the way I view it is I agree, but with that being said, you know what you signed up for.
Yeah.
That's like you go to any job. And they say, when I was working at UPS, no beards.
Yeah.
Guess what? I can't walk into work and wear a beard. And everyone's like, well, that's the dumbest thing. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Being in the military.
Sure.
Why can't we have mustaches and beards and chops like they did in the Civil War?
Sure. Yeah.
Those are awesome. Because we can't.
Yeah.
Stop talking about it.
Well, there is something, too, where the... most of these people that are in the Olympics are, 25 and under, basically. Like your
Children.
Yeah, many of them are, and especially like when you get into like the gymnastics stuff, then you're really kind of pushing those young ages, and depending on which country you're from, you might actually be under those young ages oftentimes. So that's its own thing where like you are taking these children and you're running them around in these athletic events, and then kind of holding this really high standard about like decorum and all that sort of stuff at the same time.
And it's not. We don't want to come across as like everyone in the Olympics.
No, of course not.
No, that's not the case. It's just the ones that end up making fools of themselves because they're too immature to see the broader picture. And this kind of goes with all sports in general, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got. LeBron James.
Yeah.
He's a huge controversial person because he acts like a 5-year-old all the time.
Sure.
He's a 5-year-old with hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, well, he has the right to act, he's the king. No, he's not. He's a fool who plays basketball. He makes himself look like a fool because he doesn't know anything about politics, yet he'll say something. He'll incite riots by his words because then people jump on what he says. And like, wait a minute, he was right. He plays basketball. He must know.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask for his advice on how to fix my truck.
The intersection between basketball player and political study, or pretty low. And that's a problem with us as humans too. Is we're constantly looking for.
Everyone wants to be special in their own weird way, and it's like you are special. Just stop doing it the wrong way.
We've talked about this before, like the idea that the cool kids wearing the Crocs are the ones that the masses follow, and. So we mistake this popularity for competency all the time, and again, making our stars be they movie stars or athletes or whatever, making those people the ones that we turn to for like political opinion. It's kind of a dumb move on society's part to make that conflation.
And you go back to the whole thing of they're a bunch of children,
making
these decisions. And when I say children, it's a mindset. It's you don't understand the broader picture. You don't care about the broader picture. And you're like, well, rules are dumb. This isn't high school where you can be the emo kid walking around being like, screw the world. I hate everyone. It's like, dude, you live in your mom's basement. You don't even work a job. Get over yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the thing is it's like, and no one's going to listen to this kid and being like, school's stupid.
Yeah.
You're not going to have people follow that ideology because you're a child. The same thing with this sports stuff. You signed up to play the sport. You follow the rules. You know what you're getting yourself into. Do it.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, the national anthem has nothing to do. The Olympics.
Yeah.
I think the national anthem has something to do with it when you're going to go up there and stand with your flag and represent this country.
So what do you think about... Okay, like the Olympics in general then. So take it away from these people, the activist types who are trying to use it as a stage to say the thing. What do you think about the Olympics in general? Is that something that we as a planet should keep on doing? Is it a net positive, a net negative? Like what's your opinion on just that structure?
I think it's neat.
Okay, it's neat.
I mean, I'm not a sports person.
Okay. So sports-wise, you just don't care.
I like baseball.
Sure.
I like watching baseball. Football makes me want to throw up a little bit because it's just pathetic now.
Okay.
They've just changed so much, and it's not really a man's sport. It's more of a, when I say man's, like I'm talking like hardcore, like guys are getting nailed out there, hitting each other hard. Now it's like you look at them, and you might get flagged, depends on where the referee's at. You know, it doesn't. I don't. It's just stupid. It's a stupid sport now.
Okay.
Go play rugby if you want to play a real man sport.
There you go. That's pretty solid. I
mean, that's a real man sport, not these sports where everybody's like, you hit me too hard. Rugby's like, I'm going to hit you as hard as possible, but within reason because no one's wearing pads.
That's the kind of the self-governing of rugby. I
love it.
You know that nobody else is wearing pads. You all want to kind of come back and play the sport again. And so on the one side, it looks more dangerous, but on the other, it's like you actually hold with strength because if I spear this guy, then his team's going to try to spear me.
Yeah.
And
this is dog piles all the time. I love it.
Yeah. So I think one of the mistakes in football was kind of just the introduction of pads to begin with.
I understand the pad thing, but one thing I don't like about football is this, and everyone's like, well, it is an investment and people put money into it. It's like a bunch of rich guys who could care less that they're not going to lose their wealth if their football team doesn't do well.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a bunch of like billionaires buying football teams, so they don't care. And the other side of the coin is when you're paying somebody so much money, they're getting all these athletes are entitled little girls. You know what I mean? And they need their little pink flip flops and their phones. Give me my iPhone, Dad. You're 13. You don't need an iPhone. All these guys they're so overpaid that they begin telling the owners what to do. They begin telling their coaches what's up. When did we flip here? They're the one that's the hired person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it becomes this thing of like, well, now we got to adjust the entire game because Joe Schmo over here is paid so much. And if he gets injured, we're all screwed.
Yeah.
Why are you paying him so much? You're the one that dictates it. Guess what? He can go flip burgers at McDonald's if he doesn't want to play football.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's my biggest gripe with sports is everyone's overpaid. And everyone's entitled as can be.
I actually think that a lot of that is shifting in the American mindset.
I hope so. I don't watch any of it anymore.
Well, and I think that's been kind of the lesson, or one of the lessons of 2020 is, we had this pandemic, everybody's locked down, and so all the stuff that we used to go out and do, for example, go to the sports stadium and participate in the games that way, all that was basically shut down for a year, and people took that extra time and sat there and were like, well, what should we be doing instead? And I think in the American mindset, sports took a more rightful back seat from where it used to be. Like it used to be front and center. Sports is what drove so much of society. Advertisement, just so much money was churning through these ideas of the local team. And there was a sport for everybody. There was the hockey, the basketball, the football, the soccer. Was starting to come up. I mean, you name it. There was something that could grab somebody's interest. But I think we were investing so much time and energy into that form of entertainment, and now it's like, okay, if we had a year to step back and look at it again, is this actually what we want to be doing? Is it worth these millions of dollars that are being, or probably even billions of dollars that are going through these various industries? And, so I don't know how this is all going to shake out.
I know like views and stuff are way down.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, so if it's not getting the eyeballs, then where's the revenue? Then, how does that justify what's going on?
I mean,
maybe they're saving money on janitors cleaning bleachers because nobody's sitting there anymore. But
and all those entitled athletes are still getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars to sit around and do nothing.
Yeah, it seems like these things are going to implode on their own. And I, getting back to the Olympics side of it, I kind of feel the same way about the Olympics. Like you've got this, it's almost like a parade that roves to a different city every 4 years. And in that process, it demands, local infrastructure to, build a new stadium or stadiums.
I don't understand the whole, every time it goes to a new city, it's like, we got to build all this stuff. First off, I understand the infrastructure part of it. Like, you don't want a bunch of people showing up and being like, we just killed the power grid because where all the toilets backed up because there's too many people. I understand that, and you know what? That's probably good.
Yeah,
that's probably a good thing anyway. But building a new stadium, how many? I would like to actually know how many stadiums are just sitting out there empty.
Well, that's actually an interesting thing because there are stadiums from as recent as I want to say like the 70s and 80s that they're just abandoned, like they're overgrown. Like these are Olympic stadiums where Olympic events were held, and we can't even maintain them for 2 decades. Or 3 decades.
What a waste of money.
Exactly. It's like, so all these, that's time and energy and all this sort of stuff. So imagine the Olympics, but without the sports. Hey, we're going to take this roving band of international attention and we're going to put it on like poverty-stricken areas, and the whole purpose is actually to turn these places around. To me, that's a better idea. Like let's invest all that time, money, energy into making these cities awesome. But like leave it for the residents then, instead of making it awesome for these dignitaries that are coming through that expect the highest, blah blah blah, and again, and most of that money is going into stupid stuff like stadiums. Like we don't need more stadiums on this planet.
I don't understand why you can't just have stadiums that are already there.
Most of the time they're too small for
the
scope of the event.
But not last year's stadium.
Yeah.
Why doesn't every country just build one stadium
that they do the
Olympics in when that comes to their turn to have the Olympics in their country?
So even then, there's not a turn-based thing. It's a weird process where
I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
So I'm coming from like way out of left field.
No, so how it tends to work is that there's like some sort of a bidding process where various cities say, hey, we want the Olympics to come to our place. And then they start offering in terms of like tax dollars and stadiums and designs and all that sort of stuff. Like, hey, here's all the things that we can do for you in 4 years. And then once they win it, and they tend to be won, it's probably like 16, 20 years out, something like that. So you win it, and then you have all that time to kind of build up and deliver on the promise of whatever it's going to be. So I think this year is it Beijing? And so they won it probably, I don't know, 12 years ago, something like that, maybe 16 years ago. So it was kind of decided. And then, they've been building ever since to try to get ready for it.
They've been building for this long?
Well, I mean, it takes some time. They probably have all the plans going early on, and then the actual building probably started 3 years ago.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, it is a big process, and it is a big deal, but it's also so they build all this stuff and it gets used basically this one time, but then to actually maintain that sort of a facility over time, there's imagine the groundskeepers and the people that you'd have to sink a lot of money and resources just to maintain the facilities. And oftentimes,
why doesn't it ever get used for something else?
Sometimes they do for a while, but again, just that maintaining it over time is what ends up killing it, because it's like, okay, there's a what is it, like Madison Square Gardens or something, right? Okay, so that's a big venue. It gets used for all kinds of stuff. It's a very multi-purpose. You can do concerts, you can do basketball games, you can do, just probably hockey in there if you want to. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. But as soon as you're like, now imagine that building that is specifically designed for like one sport. So you've got like, take Winter Olympics, something like bobsledding or something. Okay, so you've got this massive track that needs to be smooth, that needs to be iced. It needs to have the stands. It's like that building but stretched out down a hill, and it can only be used for the one thing. Okay, are you going to pay to maintain, do that sort of maintenance on this thing that's only useful for the one item? Not really. Like, it's not multi-purpose. You can, it's hard to justify. So yeah, that's why a lot of the Olympic stuff just gets run down over time.
That's nuts. I didn't know any of that.
Yeah,
I didn't know they were building new stadiums all the time.
Oh, it's constant. And oftentimes, too, it's the people that are living there that get the short end of the stick, because, they'll take an area that slums and basically be like, go through with the bulldozers and get everybody out of the way, and then build the stadiums and stuff there. So by the time, the national attention is on it, it's like, oh, this is nice and green and looks pretty and all this sort of stuff. But, in the meantime, thousands of people were displaced because they're the poor people. So we'll get rid of them. We'll just move them. They'll go someplace else.
I'll have to look into all that. I didn't know any of that.
It's a very weird thing, and it's all tied up into the political process. It's tied up into the idea of dignitaries and stuff, and it's really not done for the people of the city. The people of any given city usually end up a little bit worse off, when all is said and done. Like,
wasn't it in Atlanta at one point?
Yep, it was in Atlanta, 96, I want to say.
Okay.
But yeah, there's been a number of cities, and you can find all this stuff online if you go back and look at which cities had it and like what the people tend to think about it. A lot of people hate it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
See, I don't know anything about any of that.
So, I mean, that also gets into the idea of nationalism. So now we've got, the people are going, for quote unquote their country. So these athletes might not like the politics of whatever is going on in their country.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are supported by their country, though. They're supposed to go and represent their country. They're in front of all these other countries' dignitaries. So it's really tied into this political thing. Like, who are you? Where do you come from?
And that's
who gets the glory?
That's where I don't think, but that's where my opinion is different on American athletes.
Okay.
Because you're volunteering to do this, you're not getting paid. Now I'm not talking about sponsorships.
Sure.
That's someone voluntarily giving you money. I'm talking, we're the only country in the world who their government does not fund the athletes.
Yeah.
With that being said, it makes us super unique, which I think it's really cool. I don't think you should be paying your athletes at all.
Mm-hmm.
Put everyone on the same playing field, because how many gold medals do we win every year? Quite a few. And none of our athletes are paid by the government.
Mm-hmm.
Every other government pays their athletes, and it pays them well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're talking, those guys end up pretty wealthy. I know the Russian ones do, especially if you get a gold.
Yeah.
You're never gonna work again.
Yeah, so it's here it's like an amateur thing.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
Yeah. But my thing is, in the US is, if you're choosing to do this, you have to leave all of your politics out. And I'm saying you are stripped of your identity when it comes to politics, because you're choosing to represent this country in a game that's designed to represent this country. I don't understand what's difficult. Everyone's like, well, I just disagree. Then don't do the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
Go do something else that's not... Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like, I'm going to play on a soccer team with you, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
We're not actually going to play as teammates, and I'm probably going to do some stuff to sabotage us playing soccer together.
Yeah.
Because I just don't agree with you. That doesn't, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, so an athlete who's not a team player, that's what you're having here with these idiot athletes that are going to the Olympics and think they need to go protest. I'd kick them out. I would say the minute you start to protest or have any kind of individual thoughts on politics while you're at the games or competing, you automatically get kicked.
So for you, the national identity is actually an important piece of...
That's the entire point of the Olympics.
Okay.
And no one can deny that. Yep. You're not an individual when you go there. So that's the thing, is you automatically have to go in and pretend. I don't care if you pretend and you're just like, I don't care what you do, follow the rules.
Sure.
Because everyone else has to follow the rules.
Okay. So for you...
Yeah, and I'm a patriot, so
there you go.
Disrespecting this country.
There you go.
But like I said, being in the military, I can't walk in and be like, you know what, screw you, whoever my freaking commander is. I can't go, screw you, I'm growing a beard.
Yeah.
You joined the military for a reason. You knew this before you came in. Why can't we have standards? Why does this country want to destroy standards on every level? You don't go in and tell your boss what's up, or you might not have a job. But these athletes pretend, and other people go and pretend that they're oppressed when they don't get to have an opinion. It's not you can't have an opinion. You signed paperwork saying this is what you were going to do.
So here's an idea. Are we...
Anyway, I get fired up about
this because
there's no standards anymore. There's no standards, and nobody can just follow the rules. Why is there rules?
Well...
because sometimes it's good. Otherwise, you have people online changing, going from I'm British to now I'm Korean.
Yeah,
that's oh my gosh, dude, I can't handle society anymore. People are just...
So there is a guy, branching into this. Ollie London is his name. He's on YouTube. You can find him, I guess. And he's making news today because of exactly that. He's a British guy. And he put out a YouTube video where he's got what appears to be like medical tape around his eyes, and talking about like getting his teeth done and his eyes done and all this, facelift and all this sort of stuff, because he wants to come out as Korean. And most people are really, really like upset and angry at this guy. Like, you can't do that, And I think he's come out as trans or non-binary or something before too, and
that makes a lot more sense. There's some.
But even people that are in
some, there's already a thing going on upstairs. Sure. Okay.
But even people that are in that camp that are like, yeah, we support you with all this, the sexual gender identity transitioning side of things. A lot of them are like, no, you can't do that when it comes to national identity.
Who are they? Why is there rules?
Yeah.
Why is there rules? Why can't I'm an American right now.
Sure.
Who knows what my lineage is? It's like something Scandinavian and Irish and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I'm Chinese now. Look at me.
Okay.
I'm 100% Chinese, but next week I'm going to be full-blown Australian.
There you go. You're just going to change it up?
I'm just going to change it up every week. And who are you to tell me I can't do this? Because this chick can go tell the Olympics to screw off. I'm going to do what I want to do.
Okay.
Because I don't play by rules. That's the same thing. Yeah, it's funny because people will.
The same thing. It's the same ideas.
It's no different than that city of Chaz.
Yep.
Chaz, exactly. Chop, whatever this.
Well, it is.
Because here's what they would do. They go, we don't have rules. We don't have anything. Yeah. No guns allowed. Had the highest murder rate of any city at the known time. If it wasn't even a city, whatever you want to call it, country. And here's the funny thing: is no cops.
Yeah.
Why are you making rules? You just said it was a city with no rules.
Yeah.
The amount of rape that went on.
Oh yeah.
But they're like no rules, and then they started they formed their own police department.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have their own armed guards, and I'm sitting here going, now you're making rules when you just said no rules. It's because rules are a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it adds structure to society, and when you throw that out, you have idiots online who come out and go, "I'm Korean now." And then now you have everyone else going, you can't do that. You're the ones that all said that there are no rules. You can pick any gender, any identity you want. But now, as soon as you do something that's really weird, like that, everyone's like, hold up. It's like, wait a minute, you chopped your nuts off.
Yeah.
That's not weird?
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
so
anything goes now.
This is the interplay between order and chaos, right? So you've got
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're definitely high on the order side. And
order's a good thing. I don't want my 3-year-old telling me what to do.
Yep.
Dad, I'm driving. All right. Well, respect him. I'm not putting a 3-year-old in the driver's seat. There's a reason why there's an age limit for driving cars.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Order is good.
Yeah. So there's now I'll take the other side. I'm going to take the chaos side. All right. So I'm going to argue for the chaos side.
Okay.
And
Let's see how this goes.
And I think that this really gets into let me start out with this idea. Maybe we are in a post-nation world. Okay. Maybe the idea of physical borders and nations as identities unto themselves is actually something that needs to be, if not abandoned, minimized. A few years back, I don't remember the guy's name, and I think there's more than one now, but there's a lot of people that are identifying now as citizens of the world as opposed to citizens of a particular country. Because when you think about what a country is, it's like, the local people that have decided, hey, here's what our rules are, and everybody underneath those rules has to, within this geographical location.
Isn't that supposed to be like the one world government in the what's that? United Nations, which is useless.
Yeah. So I'm not like a one world government sort of guy, but I am, again, back to our previous conversations on that, I think that the key to living a good life is to be somebody who doesn't need governance. So to live in such a way that police state apparatus is basically not something that you actually need to be a good person. Like, go be a good person anyways. So I don't need somebody telling me and laying out the rules in order for me to know how to live properly.
Yeah.
And because odds are they're going to be laying out rules that I disagree with, and which would actually cause me to live a less fulfilled, less generous, less.
But the thing is I think most rules that are in, and I'm not saying every rule's good, but most rules come out because people can't figure out how to live. So you have more and more rules to help guide this giant train wreck.
Sure.
So it's a train that's derailed, and you're just, if we put in some massive brick walls, we can keep this thing from killing people,
That's the theory. But when it gets down to, even just the idea of nations, so, we were talking about the Olympics earlier. I think this idea of nations competing against each other is almost archaic. Now, maybe it's good in that, it replaces us killing each other on the battlefield. Maybe there's diplomatic things that come out of it.
Back to Colosseum.
There you go. Exactly. Right.
So how would that work? So let's say all countries done.
Well,
let's say all countries are done. So now what you have regions or sectors of the world. Let's say it's a one world government. Sure. You've got one dude at the top, Mr. Former Vice President Joe Biden, running the entire world. And now you've got sectors of governors over areas, because you can't just be everything go prosper. That's not going to work. You're going to have that, but then you're going to have sector against sector in an Olympic game. Not country, but it's the same thing.
So again, this idea of Olympics as an idea is something that I find just odd. So I don't really.
So you don't like the idea of people showing identity in a country.
I think identity is a strange thing in and of itself, as this Ali guy is displaying. I actually got into a metaphysical discussion with somebody online about this idea of identity. Are you familiar at all with the ship of Theseus problem? Okay, so it's a paradox. The idea is that Theseus has a ship, and he was kind of a well-known guy. And let's say the ship ends up at a in a boatyard someplace.
Okay.
And it's sitting there in the boatyard, and they start repairing the ship, and they pull out the bad planks and they put in new good planks, right? Well, eventually every plank in the ship of Theseus has been replaced by a new plank, right? Then somebody takes all these bad planks that they took out and rebuilds another ship out of them, exactly the same as what it was. Which one is actually the ship of Theseus? Right? Now, this is an issue of identity, because you can't say, oh, the ship of Theseus is that plank. It resides there. We try to do this with cars. It resides in the VIN number, or, resides on the engine block. That's the core of the car. You can replace everything else, but that's the one that says, that's car 1 instead of car 2. But we as humans are literal ship of Theseus as well. We've got this memory, this continuity of what our lives are, and yet I think it's something every 7-8 years, every cell in our body has been replaced, just like every plank on the ship has been replaced. It's been torn down and pooped out and then re-eaten as cows or burgers or whatever, and everything gets replaced. And so this idea of what is the identity that is me? What is the identity that is you? What is the identity of the ship? Or even what is the identity of a country? How do you claim that as a part of yourself? And can you get rid of it just like the ship of Theseus can get rid of a particular plank? And it really, I think people playing around with identity and this, the gender stuff and the trans movement and all that sort of stuff is baked into basically this problem. It is what are you as a human? What are you doing here? How did you get to be here? Which parts of these are core to you? Is being an American, a patriot, core to you? Well, it's very core part of your identity, Corbin. To me, you even say it. You've got the badge on your head. You say, I'm a patriot. This is the way that you talk about who you are as a person. Yeah. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
There's other people that don't have that as a plank that's core to them. That's not a part of their identity in the same way. For example, it's not a part of my identity in the same way. When I talk about myself and list off things, American is not one of the top ones. Now, it used to be for me. I spent 4 years living in New Zealand. And when I was in New Zealand, being an American was a big part of my identity, because that's what created a separation. That's what explained my accent difference. That explained, so much about my life was that I was an American. And maybe if it had been less of an identity piece for me, I would have had more friends in New Zealand because they were all looking out for their self-interest. But we even have that discussion here in America. Like, for example, what is the identity of African Americans in relationship to America as a whole? Are they a thing that is separate? Are they a thing that is included? Are they?
I think if you're a citizen of the United States, you're an American.
Sure.
I don't believe in that. I don't even like the term African American.
Yes,
because it says you're African before you're American. No, you're not. I could sit there and say that I'm Irish, Scandinavian, yes, British, American.
Yes. Screw
that. And I'm an American, and if you come to this country and you're a citizen of this country, we're so privileged and entitled in this country.
Yeah.
That we have to sit there and try to even be more special than we are. America's pretty special.
Yes.
In the sense that the wealthiest nation in the world, we drive the world economy, we help the most people in this world. Mm-hmm. We have a very special place in this country, in this world.
Yes.
And you have Americans who can't be proud of that. They have to sit there and be like, how divisive can I be and how special can I be that I can label all this stuff? Yet you have all these Hispanics and people come from other countries that come in here and go, I just want to be an American. Yeah. I just want to be an American. And we have lost sight of how special this country is, that you have people dying to get here just to call themselves Americans.
Yeah.
You don't have Hispanics going around going, well, I'm from Mexico. Mexico's the best place in the world. No, it's not, because it's ran by the cartel and people are getting murdered left and right. They would love to come here and live in the worst place in the United States is still better than the best place in Mexico. Mm-hmm. That's that you can go to the bank on that because you have freedom here you don't have there.
Yeah, well, it really does. I mean, like, I think this issue of identity is so central because of, okay, for example, take the African American community. A lot of them would say, hey, our experience as people coming to America was completely different from, say, the Mexican people coming up or the Hispanic people coming up. Because for them, they're fleeing something. For us, our lineage started because we were dragged here against our will.
By your own people. Don't forget that one.
There's a piece of that. But again, so their introduction into America was completely 180 from everything that it's supposed to stand for. And so there really is almost this weird dividing line about what is your identity in that? I
just think at some point though that you have to, I can say the same. There's a potato famine in Ireland.
Sure.
And you came here and then the Irish were tortured, so were the Chinese. That's not going to be ever talked about because they're all white.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is you can have that and live in that identity and sit there and go, well, my great-great-great-granddaddy was a slave, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. You know what? I think we all came from slave lineage to some extent. Everybody has that in their family. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying you should forget your history. Mm-hmm. You forget the history, it tends to repeat itself.
Yeah.
But don't sit there and live and waller in that all the stinking time. Yeah. That's all you hear is, the slave. You aren't a slave. Enjoy your freedom now. The problem is you're wasting your life trying to sit there and say, if we can sit here and we can have conversation after conversation, Bob, my great-great-great-grandfather was a slave. Mm-hmm. Congratulations, Corbin. What does that have to do for you now? I am going to sit here and make sure the world knows this guy who's not alive anymore, and his life doesn't affect my life at all because I never knew him. I didn't know his kids or his kids or his kids. Mm-hmm. But yet, gosh dang it, Bob, I'm going to rant and rave about the slave that was in my family, and somehow that affected me, and it's like, it's not affecting you. You live in the greatest country in the world. You're completely free, and you're a business owner here in the States. I don't understand. I don't understand. What are you talking? Yeah, but gosh dang it, there's slave lineage. What does that do? What does that do for you? I could say the same thing for my family, but that doesn't do anything for me.
Sure, I think it gets down to this. I keep bringing it back to identity because I think there's something...
You're right.
I think there's something about it where, they would look at, say, the identity that is America, and they would say, hey, look, there is this stain on this identity.
There's a stain. Every country has that exact same stain.
They do. However, we are also in a position where we can decide what we want that identity to be. And maybe
we're choosing right now. Look at
exactly.
Minneapolis. You don't want that identity burned down. Yeah. You know, that's I don't.
But in the same way,
we're choosing the wrong identity, guys.
In the same way that Ollie is choosing to be Korean. You know, maybe there's something where there's a part of the population in America that's saying, you know what, I'm choosing not to be American. Like, I'm living here in the borders, okay? But the identity of American is sullied in my mind such that I don't want to be associated with that. But
you're going to love the freedoms that it comes with.
No, but okay, let's put it this way. Let's look at, say, like somebody who comes from North Korea. Right, so North Korea, they've got the dictator. It's a horrible place. Lots of people are fleeing the country. It's, you know, not great for them. Okay, but they make it out of North Korea.
No human right violation going on over there.
Yeah. But here's the difference. So they come out of their country, and then they, you know, come to, say, American borders, or more often to like South Korea.
Yeah.
And they might say, like, I'm from North Korea, but the identity that they're trying to take or assume onto themselves is not to be a North Korean. It's, I want to be like maybe a North Korean refugee, or I want to be an escapee from North Korea. Or maybe they come to the United States and or South Korea, and they say, I'm going to go through that process to become South Korean. Now, I still have North Korea as a part of my history, my past, and I've got traumas and whatever that I have to deal with. But what I'm trying to do is put that identity behind me and take on a new identity as, you know, South Korean, American.
So what's unique about the United States is this. I can't go to China, become a citizen, and say I'm Chinese.
Not yet. Maybe Ollie can. But anyways.
Right. Gosh. Ugh. No, but I can't go to Russia.
Yeah.
But I can become a citizen, but I can't sit there and say, I'm Russian. Now, here's the unique part. You can come from another country, become a citizen of the United States, and guess what? You are now an American, because we don't discriminate on the color of your skin. We don't discriminate on what country you came from.
Yes.
Guess what? You can come and be an American, and you can have that lineage. But gosh dang it, you just took on a new identity as an American, and that is super unique. You can't do that with any other country.
Okay. Yes to the idea. But
that's not an idea. That's the truth.
But I want to.
This country is built off that.
Well, yes, but I want to broaden the conversation, because what we're talking about are, do the officials of these countries allow me to claim that I'm from these countries? Okay, and that's a different question than.
Why would you want to?
Well, not just that, but like, let's put reasoning aside. But what I'm saying is, like, that's a different question.
Reasoning aside. No, it's just funny the way you said it. Because okay, let's just
So let's say, okay, my kid is into anime. Okay, so they are actively adopting part of whatever that anime culture is. They wear the T-shirts. They like to, you know, put colors in their hair. They do things of that nature that says that associates themselves with that culture.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm in the middle of watching an anime where it's a black individual who is over in, I believe it's Japan. It's samurai stuff. Is that Japanese? And anyway,
it is.
Okay, and it's like, so he's taken on the identity of being Japanese, learned the language, you know, follows the old ways and the codes and all that sort of stuff through this movie, or through this TV show. And so I think identity has to be something more than what the officials allow you to be. And that's actually one of the weird reasons why America has such a strange relationship with our southern border. Because there is the one hand where it's like, okay, you know, are you an American when you have signed the documents and the official stuff and the United States government has said, yeah, you're an American? Or are you an American when you come across the border and you put in the time and effort and you build community and you take on an ethos of freedom in your heart? Like, which of those two is the thing that actually makes you an American? Is it the paperwork, or is it something about the behavior? And
so, well, I mean, for legality, it's the paperwork.
Yes.
But I think you come to this country and you're an actual benefit to this country and not just a mooch.
Sure.
Or you're just here to cause crime and chaos. If you're here and you're like, you see it all the time with immigrants, that they're not legal, but they somehow started a business. They're doing construction work. Mm-hmm. They're painting houses. Mm-hmm. They're growing a family. Mm-hmm. They're great members of society, and they're good people. And it's like, you're an American.
Sure.
Whether paperwork says or not, you're an American because you're living out the American dream.
Sure.
I mean, it kind of goes back into that.
Yeah. So
we just label it as an American. I mean,
absolutely.
It's a label, which you label everything.
Absolutely. So to you, the American dream is something like that. It's not 100% tied with the governmental legal paperwork, although that seems to be a part of it.
That's just because it has to be.
Sure.
And I mean, we can argue that. I agree. Sure. Do you need that? I mean, you got to keep track of people, and people got to pay taxes if you're going to be driving on a government road.
Sure.
I mean, do we need government roads? There's that whole thing.
There is a lot of conversation there, which I don't want to really dive into yet. But imagine now that instead of seeing it from, the American dream from that particular lens, what you see when you hear the word American is something a lot more traumatic.
I didn't say freedom.
Yeah, so you see the freedom side.
There's a giant freaking eagle in this room right now talking about it.
Waving flag behind us on the green screen.
Oh, God.
We need better lighting, folks. It'll come.
Just turn my head into an eagle talking.
There you go. There you go. But, there is a chunk of America that does not have that reaction. And I can't say that their reaction should be good or bad or different or the same as yours. Just like there's a chunk of North Koreans that have a different reaction when they hear North Korea and they want to get out. And there's a chunk of Chinese that, they want to send their kids over here for education because they like the freedom stuff. But in the same way, like we have, call it the American shadow, if you will, but there's a chunk of Americans that feel cut out and the identity that they have associated with the word America, with the flag, with the national anthem, with all this sort of stuff is a very negative reaction.
So do you think that, with that being said, the first thing that came to mind is high school.
Sure. What about high school?
But I'm going to use this as an example. So you have a high school that's world renowned.
Okay.
And you have all these students that go there.
Yep.
And you're going to have kids that had good experiences in this high school.
Yes.
That got a great education.
Yes.
It's a great education. It could be an awesome place. And then you got the emo kid over in the corner who's just like, this place sucks. Why does it suck? Because life sucks. So you have all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then this kid graduates and that place blew, man. And then it's like, well, I guess you got all these top-ranking CEOs and all these people that came out of this high school because it prepared them for college and the real world. Mm-hmm. But then you're going to have those people that go, this place blows, I hate it. Like every high school's got those kids. Sure. But then guess what? The kid made nothing with his life because he chose to. And he didn't take advantage of the awesome opportunities. If you're struggling with stuff, he never went to a counselor, never talked to his teachers about it. He just made the decision, I'm going to do nothing. Mm-hmm. Same thing with this country. You've got the people who take advantage. I'm not talking about wealthy. Mm-hmm. I'm saying people who make something. The My Pillow guy.
Yeah, there you go.
Mike Lindell. Yeah. He came from nothing to, he's got a private jet.
Yeah.
But then you have the people that don't do anything. Go, this place sucks. Well, what have you done?
Yeah.
Well, the man keeps me down. Okay, that's the lousiest excuse because the man must be keeping everyone down then.
Yeah, I think, people are allowed to have different opinions on these institutions or on a geographical area. That's the interesting thing about
people that have had bad experiences and they have their mind tainted by a bad experience.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is you can do anything you want. That's the beauty of this country.
Yes. So there's like two sides to this thing, and one of it has to do with like the triggering trauma side, and part of it has to do, what does that identity mean to you? And that has to be, it's inherently a personal question. And it's hard, like this is something that I had to kind of refine my own thinking about is, if an identity is purely positive for me, like, an American identity is. Mm-hmm. You love it. You're a patriot. Good on you. Mm-hmm. But there's other people that have like a purely negative thing about it. Another huge example is the church. Okay, the church is supposed to be, and for many people it is, like this purely positive thing, right? Mm-hmm. The Roman Catholic Church. Like there's a reason Protestants exist. It's because the purely positive thing of the Roman Catholic Church that all the Roman Catholics saw did not work out. And so people said, no, I can't be under that identity anymore. I need to go be a Protestant. I still like X, Y, and Z about the teaching. I need to go and do something else though, because that identity of being Catholic isn't working for me.
Okay.
Same between, the Catholic and Orthodox, and they split, right? Like, those identities were not sufficient, and so they had to. It couldn't be the positive can't be of a totalitarian nature. Like, this is the only side that you can see on it. No, like, there's a shadow to all this stuff.
Well, it's the beauty of. I mean, that's also the beauty of living in this country, is you can take on any identity you want. Mm-hmm. The problem is how beneficial is that for you? And I'm not trying to come across as like, I'm probably coming across a little bit harsh, and I'm not.
You can be harsh. That's okay.
Yeah, but I don't want to say everyone's an individual and everyone's special. Mm-hmm. I do believe that.
Sure,
but what I don't understand, what other identities do you need? Is it beneficial for you to sit there and live off of this certain ideology? What is it going to do for you? You're going to spend your whole life protesting, or are you going to go get a job, have a family, and be beneficial to society? You're just going to burn society down. Because people are living in strange ideologies. They've got this strange identity that is not helpful. Yes. It's not beneficial. You can sit here and you can sit there and say, it's the American thing to protest. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. You can protest. But there's a difference between protesting and burning down a Wendy's.
Sure.
Which somehow I guess we're going to blur lines here.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is like, where's the benefit, and what are we actually solving? Are you going to get out and actually solve these issues? Are you going to get out and start foundations and get people together and be an influencer for a change of good? Mm-hmm. Or are you going to sit there and say it's the institutions that are allowing shootings? There's no cops allowing a shooting. Mm-hmm. They're there. You call them every time there's a shooting. Stop saying cops are bad when. The minute chaos ensues, who's the first person who's waving the defund the police, pulls out the phone, 911? We need cops here now. You got video after video of it. Mm-hmm. Why are you doing that? Because they're not evil. They're not bad. Mm-hmm. They're there to help you. But why don't you help them and stop this process and change the culture that you live in?
I think
instead of pushing it even further.
I think there's two. Well, okay, so there's interesting reactions. One is to say, okay, this identity, like all identities have some sort of a shadow. Like that's how they are. So you've got the positive aspect of it, and then you've got like the negative underground stuff that gets hidden and pushed out of the way that nobody really wants to look at because it's icky and gross. Catholic Church, pedo priests, right? Like or whatever. And
everything's got a history.
Everybody's
got
a history.
That's not fun.
Exactly.
That's part of being sinful humans.
So there's a couple of options that you can do when you run into the shadow, and the shadow is not being addressed over and over and over again. And one might argue, and many do, that slavery is the shadow of America that is not being addressed.
Not even
whether you agree or disagree, whatever, people feel that way. So what you can do is you can, what seems to be happening is almost like a runaway from that. Okay, I want to, instead of change America and bring out the shadow, but yet remain American, it seems to be something closer to, I want to dissolve America and start something new that doesn't have a shadow. Like that.
It's going to have a shadow. Now, here's the shadow. It will. Rioting in the streets and burning down Wendy's and CVS's and looting and rioting. That's going to be the next shadow. Like, how retarded were we that we had to burn everything down to try to get change? Yes. You can't. That's not the way it works. What would be better? To go, we're going to go from this shadow of oppression and slavery to, you know what? We're going to stand up and we are going to change the culture and we are going to change things for good. Hence, Martin Luther King.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
There we go.
I think that's probably the more healthy way of doing it. Like take care of the body you have instead of tearing the body you have down and trying to replace it with.
Or be the bigger man in the room that's going to say, I'm not going to stoop to that level. I'm going to make the change and I'm going to lead people.
Yes.
Be a leader. A servant leader in your own society. The problem is no one wants that identity because you know what? It's not sexy. It's more sexy to throw a brick through a window.
It is.
Everyone loves to crash.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
But it's not beneficial because now guess what? Someone's got to replace the window.
Yeah.
Instead of going, you could have washed that window. You could have helped that business. Mm-hmm. You could have cleaned up the street outside, clean up your neighborhood. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? The whole identity thing, the reason why people need a rally cry for something. Mm-hmm. And why not use, we're Americans. Mm-hmm. Let's unify under one banner as a people and let's make this country great.
So
that's what I'm coming with the identity thing is people want to be so special, they have to do something to get attention instead of just being like, why don't we do change for good, rally under the American flag, because you live here in this country and it's something you can do. It's a banner you can have. I don't care what banner, if you want Black Lives Matter, rally under that banner, unify, and get work done, not tear the place down.
So I prefer like a worldwide banner.
That's fine. Whatever you want. Well, it can be just a giant planet. I don't care.
Yeah,
but there's no unity right now. Well, it's all chaos.
Agreed. But see, that gets into if we to somebody who prefers more of the worldwide ethos or that larger identity, then
we're all human.
There's
an identity right there.
Yeah, exactly. The humanity identity.
We're all humans. You can go with that.
Great. So the problem with the humanity identity is it tends to put humans in front of other ecological things.
Like what?
I don't know. The cliche is the burning down the Amazon rainforest or something, right? So I get it, but
that's just being a good steward of the planet.
Yes, exactly. So humans.
I'm not saying burning it down is being a good steward, but I'm just saying people need to be a good steward. I don't like.
Yeah, but the but from the perspective of the worldwide, the American or the Chinese or the Russian or the Rwandan or whatever, pick your the Arab way of doing things or the Israeli way or whatever. Like all those things are when you put those identities in front of, it's the same thing as doing hyphenated African American. It's the same. I'm hyphenated American world citizen. Well, which one are you first? Like which one is should you not be the world citizen no matter which country you end up in?
That's what I love. That's what I love about the teachings of Christ is all men are created equal under God. So why are we sitting here? And that's kind of what it is. You love every person as Christ has loved you. So why are we bickering and fighting?
Who would you prefer succeed, China or America? And I'm asking because I
don't like communism because it ends up. Look at China. How many people are getting killed? Look at Russia. Let's just adopt. And that's like saying, what would you rather have, North Korea or America? Well, for one, I'm not suicidal, so I'm going to choose America. Yeah. But what I'm saying is everything America does right? No, I'm not that big of an idiot. I might be an idiot, but I'm not that big of an idiot. Yeah. We have our issues. Can things be tweaked and things be modified and reformed? Yes, but not communism.
But so here's the
people
trick
tend to die under communism.
This is why I'm kind of the post country mindset a little bit. Is again, I'm trying to conduct my life in such a way that I don't need governance. Again, I'm not. That's an inner work, that's morals, that's all that sort of stuff. I find governance more of an impedance to good, healthy living than a help.
Well, it kind of goes with the idea, if you want the police out of your life, just stop doing stuff to get the police called.
Sure.
It's the same thing. If you want the government in your life, don't do anything stupid.
But ideally, I should be able to live in such a way that I could be transplanted into any society, the Chinese, the Russian, whatever, and flourish just as well, because the character traits that are being built are cross-cultural. Kindness doesn't stop at America's borders. Kindness, you could put me in China, 100%. And I'd be, like that's the point. And kindness is one of those things that shouldn't be illegal. So you exercise kindness. And I think that we need more of a worldview that has, this higher perspective. This, it's what the International Space Station people, the flyover effect, where it's like, oh, I see the planet as this one living organism, and look, I can't even tell where the borders are. Those are drawn on political maps and are kind of stupid, right? And because when you start living that way, then all of a sudden, what China does matters, but it also changes how we respond to them. Like, do we hate, and again, not us in particular, but do we hate the Chinese, or do we hate the African Americans for what they're doing, or do we say, oh, we want to call you to being the best version of yourself, and that includes some sort of love and inclusion. I don't know. I'm mixing my metaphors and ruining my words here, but
no, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome. Like, I mean, in the Christian world, they're all like, "Oh, one world government's the end times." It's like, well, the end times are coming at some point anyway, so it doesn't matter. Everyone thought Bitcoin was that. Well, I'm going to invest in it, make money off.
There you go.
I'll make money off the devil. Let's do it. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to get taken way out of context. You know what I mean? But it's like, oh, if that's a one world currency, then I might as well get in on it because you know what? I can sit here and protest all day, but eventually my opinion's not going to matter. So, but honestly, if you can build unity, and people can follow something like what you were just saying, then yes, that's awesome. The problem is I have no hope in humanity to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I don't think it's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, let's say you got every country on the planet besides Russia and China to come together, and North Korea, to come together and say, we're going to go under one banner and we're going to be a unified, I don't want to say country, because if we're trying to get away from countries, you want to be a unified
planet.
A unified planet, and then you have these three countries go, you guys are idiots. You're not unified. Now, it'd be really easy to go in there and just mow them over and just be like, we're going to restart fresh here, but that wouldn't be what you're shooting for.
Yeah.
No pun intended. So, you know what I mean? Like, so it's a cool idea, but it's like, unless people have a heart change, you're not going to be able to get there.
Yeah. And I think the heart change is in process. And I think it has something to do with people like Ollie and people like this Gwen Berry. And I think that they're the shadow side of it, the weird side of it, but something about how identity is being played with right now. And what does it mean? And again, a lot of them are ending up in kind of like the very individualistic camp of identity. And a lot of them are doing weird stuff like claiming they can be Korean or whatever. But I think that this issue of, the ship of Theseus, who are you, what are we as planet Earth?
Yeah.
I think that's being worked out in a way that has never been worked out before.
Well, we're definitely going down a road of... We're already on the road no return.
Yeah.
For a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And where that's going to end up, I just think... See, I'm coming from a Christian's perspective. Yes. So the road I see is there's a road of no return. Because it's all going about it the wrong way. So I'm looking from that worldview. I'm not going to sit here and just push that on everybody. We're trying to have a conversation that we can get into a fist fight.
I'd lose.
That'd be non-productive for both of us. You know what I mean? And our viewers. But I'm just letting everyone know that's my worldview. So when I see it is, unless people can find their identity in something bigger than themselves, you're never going to change. Yeah. My identity is in Christ.
Sure.
100%. That is where I find my identity. So it's really easy for me to love somebody. I get on here and I talk aggressive and stuff because I get worked up easily. But in reality, I can get along with anyone. Yeah. Me and Bob have very different points of view on a lot of things. Absolutely. But I love Bob. We're friends. This is fun for me. Yeah. And nothing he's going to do is going to offend me. Yeah. Now we could we are vastly different in a lot of ideas, and that's okay. It's awesome. You know what I mean? I think it's great. But unless people can find something bigger than themselves to believe in, and something that has true meaning, you're not going to get anywhere. So that's what I'm saying with a lot of these people. Their identity is in these physical, weird manifestations of I'm Korean now. Is that really? Is that going to satisfy?
It doesn't. It's and I would agree with that 100%. So I am comfortable in the Christian language. So I would say I find identity in Christ. Now our perspective of what that is probably a little bit different, but that's okay. Yeah. But even within that, I would say when you're playing around with identity and looking at, is becoming Korean going to help? Is, becoming not American going to change that? Is hyphenating American? Is even identity as Patriot American, as awesome as that identity is, that's the subservient one to...
That's why we're having problems, right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? In reality, I can circle back and say that's why we're having issues, because that doesn't fulfill everyone's needs. it doesn't fulfill mine.
Yeah.
Being an American, I
awesome
love it. I love it because I love the freedoms this country has. My identity is really not rooted in that.
Yeah.
Because you take all of that away, which it looks like this country is completely changing anyway. Yeah. So let's say all my freedoms get stripped and everything changes, hypothetically. Where's my identity now? Yeah. Well, it's rooted in something that's not, you can't take
It's got to be deeper. Yeah.
You can't take it from me. But that's where, and this is going to touch on some touchy things, but that whole Korean thing, it goes into the whole transgender thing.
Yep.
And I'm not knocking those people at all.
But you got to transcend identity and body parts.
But me whacking some body parts off, and everyone's saying, well, I was born a different, that's not the argument.
Yeah.
The argument is, if I just go and have a bunch of surgeries done, no one can deny the amount of suicide rate in the transgender community, and it's horrible, and it's so sad.
Yeah,
I hate it because those people thought that would solve their problem, and it doesn't solve a single thing. And then you're like, why don't people accept me? Because it's different. People don't like different. You know, there's people that it's becoming more and more acceptable, but it's still one of those things of like, I'm a female, I'm a male who went female, but now I want males, and most males, straight white males that everyone hates,
there you go.
You know, they're not going to accept that because they go, well, I want a real woman, and they're like, well, I am a real woman. It's like, yeah, but mentally I can't get past that because that's not normal in society. It's becoming more normal, but you know what I'm tiptoeing through the tulips right now with my words, you know. But what I'm saying is their identity is so, they're trying to find their identity in changing their gender or going to whatever they say their gender is. But the problem is once they get there, there's no fulfillment. Yeah. Because it's so rooted in such a physical, mental thing that does not satisfy. And there's story after story after story of people who have gone through all of that and regretted every minute of it because once they got to their finish line, it turns out that didn't satisfy. Yep. So what is going to satisfy your soul? Yeah. That's the thing. And that's what, I know what satisfies mine. You know what I mean? But unless you have something that's going to satisfy that, you can't have this thing that's always shifting. Because then people are like, oh, well, maybe this, or maybe this, or maybe this. You got to be rooted in something. And if you're not, life's depressing. Yeah. And there's no joy in it. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Sorry, I did not mean to. I just ranted like crazy.
This is fantastic. And I agree with all that. I agree. There's you got to find that deeper thing. Yeah. But I think this is a good place to wrap it up. Yeah. Episode 6, I believe.
Yeah, that's exciting.
The Brown Couch. Yeah. So thank you to our audience. Like, subscribe, share. Yeah.
And you can find us on Rumble and...
There's Rumble and YouTube. We're also coming out on the Locals platform. Okay. thebrowncouch.locals.com. Yeah. And we hope to see you all. Leave messages, notes, let us know what you think.
Yeah, if there's topics you guys want us to touch on or things you want us to do or not do in the episodes, or me change some colorful language because But anyway, just let us know. I mean, we're doing this for you guys, and it's also for us too. We just really enjoy this, and it's just fun to talk about stuff and get your mind going. So give us ideas, and like, share, subscribe. All those things to help us out. We're trying to grow the channel, but we also just want to grow the conversation. So comments would be cool. So I don't know if we even have a single comment yet. So somebody be the first. So cool. Thanks. Awesome.